Yamaha announced a major update to their Tracer 7 middleweight tourer lineup, and so in this video we'll look at the important details with the 10 key things that you need to know. The reason for the timing on this update, as with many other bikes at the moment, is the latest Euro 5 Plus emissions regulations, which mean bikes need to run cleaner in order to remain on sale in 2025. So while the peak power figure of 72 horses stays the same for their CP2 parallel twin, well, it's been cleaned up to meet the new requirements. That said, they have taken the opportunity to make some modernizations and improvements, like a slip assist clutch for example, but the big one is the throttle, which previously had been a traditional cable throttle. Now though, it's their electronic ride-by-wire system called YCCT, or Yamaha chip-controlled throttle. This follows on from other bikes on the CP2 platform like the super popular MT-07 Naked and the Tenere 700 adventure bike. In fact, I just got done reviewing the T7 and I really liked the new throttle action, being super smooth, no choppiness on and off, and so I'd expect the throttle on this new Tracer to feel exactly the same. On top of that though, what it does open up is the ability to give the bike a number of different throttle maps and also traction control, which might not seem like a big deal as it's on most bikes now, but it wasn't on the last generation of Tracer 7. Now both are managed through 3 riding modes, one called Sport, another called Street, and a third being a custom slot. And here you can choose from 3 different throttle maps for varying levels of responsiveness, and 2 settings for the traction control intervention, plus the ability to switch it off. Tourers like this are all about versatility. It could be a weekend blast on a sunny day, but equally a bit of a motorway slog in the wet. So the ability to get the electronics dialed into the conditions, in my opinion, is a nice enhancement for 2025. On top of that, cruise control is now available for the first time and also now comes fitted as standard, and I'd say I'd probably struggle to buy a tourer like this now without cruise control, and so it's great to see it added, and again probably as a result of that new electronic throttle. Now the Tracer 7 previously really only had the Versys 650 from Kawasaki as a competitor, and I would say it's not a particularly feature-heavy bike. But then, a couple of years back, Triumph launched the Tiger Sport 660, and well, it really did up the ante in this particular part of the market. In fact, more recently, Triumph added for 2025 cruise control, a sport riding mode, a quick shifter, cornering TC and ABS, and Bluetooth connectivity, all as standard now on the Tiger Sport 660 and for a similar price, so really, the Tracer had to up its game to stay competitive, and to be fair, they've done just that. In fact, having ridden all 3 bikes back to back, I can say one of the areas in which the Triumph really did outclass the competition was the handling, but to be fair, again for 2025, it does seem like Yamaha have tried to address this with numerous chassis updates, and so I'm now expecting this to be a quite closely fought battle. The steel backbone frame, for example, has been made more rigid, while the swing arm has been lengthened by 40mm in order to offer better stability. The 41mm upside-down fork is updated and has 18 levels of rebound adjustment. The brakes are now radially mounted for a bit of a crisper feel, and tyres come from Michelin with their Pilot Road 6 GTs, which should be the perfect all-rounder for a bike of this nature. Now comfort, of course, is a massive factor on a tourer, and pretty much every part of the rider triangle has been somewhat optimized. Perhaps the biggest change is the bar position, with them now sitting 30mm higher and 25mm wider, but also the seat with 20mm of adjustment is said to be grippier, yet sculpted at the same time to allow for easier movement should the rider want to feel a little more agile on the bike. Now the Tracer 7 also comes in a GT spec, which gets a slightly more touring-friendly setup, and this one gets a seat with thicker cushioning for a touch more comfort when you're putting the big miles in, and you've also got rubber inserts in the foot pegs for both the rider and passenger to soak up a little bit of the vibes. On top of that, that GT version also gets a significantly updated windscreen, bigger by 90mm for more wind protection, but also adjustable through 60mm of range to ensure you can get it dialed to the conditions or your particular height. They also say they've used CFD or computational fluid dynamics, which is effectively like a virtual wind tunnel, to make sure the turbulence around the rider or buffeting is kept to an absolute minimum. As for the standard bike, well, it's smaller in terms of the windscreen, but it's now smoked as standard to give it a bit more of a sporty vibe. Onto the cockpit, and we've got more updates here too, with a new 5-inch color TFT display managed through new switchgear. Now, in my experience, previous iterations of CP2 bikes were a little bit fiddly, with quite small buttons that didn't really have a nice feel to them with the plastics. But like I say, trying the new Tenere recently, it's a big improvement with better buttons, better matte finish plastics, and a 5-way joystick that makes the dash really quite easy to navigate. Then you've now got Garmin turn-by-turn nav built in if you use the free Garmin app, 3 flash lane changes on the indicators and self-cancelling after a long press, and their emergency stop function which flashes both the rear indicators under hard braking, hopefully to avoid anyone running into the back of you. Now, you'd say generally the looks are fairly similar in terms of the overall form, but you can see in the details it's been sharpened up quite a bit, predominantly with the new headlight, which personally I'd say does give it now quite a nice looking front end. Yamaha call it a compact forward motion design, and you can kind of see what they mean if you look at it from the side, with an aggressive sporty look that kind of pinches towards the headlight. Now, I think it's fair to say that Yamaha don't always get the looks right. The MT Nakeds, for example, always seem to split opinion, but in my eyes this one's a decent looking bike, and also along with the new bodywork there's a new tank shape, and it's actually a little bit bigger at 18 litres to the previous gen's 17. For paint, well, you've got a red and a black for the base bike, while the GT comes in their Icon Performance, which is silver and blue, but then also, again, a stealthy black option. Onto the price, and the standard bike comes in at £8,804, whereas the GT is a little more at £10,104. Now, to be fair to Yamaha, that's pretty much the same price as 2024. In fact, the base model is £16 cheaper. And as for the competition, well, the Tiger Sport from Triumph now starts at £8,995, whereas the Versys is about £1,000 cheaper, starting at £7,899. To be honest, the Versys is probably the least appealing on the engine front, and also probably the simplest in terms of features. And the chassis spec is looking the most simplistic now too, and I do believe it's the weightiest of the bunch, so perhaps it's no surprise that they've decided to compete on price. The Tiger though, well, it's really quite well spec'd with features, and also the triple engine might be tempting to some, but I will say, looking at the Tracer now, it does look like it's going to come much closer in terms of tech, potentially the handling too, and so it looks like they're both going to be worth a demo before you decide to pull the trigger on either, although I will confirm that once I've had the chance to ride this new Tracer. As for the standard bike versus the GT, which is another potentially tricky buying decision, well, it's an extra £1,300, but you do get side cases, a centre stand, the GT seat, the bigger windscreen, heated grips as standard, and the fancy paint option. So if you were already thinking of speccing up the base bike as a fairly sort of capable tourer, then realistically the GT is going to be the more cost-effective way to do it. So all in, it looks pretty good to me. It's a nice bunch of updates, although I was perhaps a little surprised to see that there's no YAMT or Yamaha automated manual transmission, which is basically their automatic gearbox option. They've already fitted it to the bigger sibling, the Tracer 9, and also to the MT-07 Naked, which is on the same CP2 platform as this Tracer 7. And this one, being a tourer, seems like more of an obvious fit for that type of tech than the MT-07. But perhaps they've got a good reason not to offer it here, and I'd love to know what you think down in the comments below. Also, if you want to see more of the best new tourers for 2025, then I'll stick our roundup on the screen now so you can give it a watch in case you missed it. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle news like this right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.